Hello everybody, welcome back to Hidden Harvest with Liz. Today we're going to be doing a quick check-in on our seedlings, and then we're going to be doing some sweet potato starts, but really quick, let's just check to see how our seedlings are going. I'm not sure how well this is going to show up in the video, so this is my first time actually showing the seed starting area in a video, but I have got some yarrow right here, I've got some cilantro in the back, and only one of my calendulas actually sprouted, but I didn't put any of my flower seeds into the freezer like I was supposed to, and I was way late, but I went ahead and tried to plant them. None of them really came up, which is a lesson for next year. And then I've got tons and tons of tomatoes, a few peppers in the back. I've got some more tomato and pepper starts because a lot of my peppers did not actually sprout. And then I have got my rosella, which is doing pretty good. And then towards the back, I've also got a couple of other things. I've got marshmallow back there and a couple of tomatoes that are back there in the back as well. But right now, this is all I've got going on. There's quite a few of them, like this one right here that needs to be up potted. And these guys, like I said, they didn't even sprout the first time, so this is a redo. One thing that I am definitely, there we go. One thing I'm learning this year is start early because there's a chance that the stuff won't sprout and you might have to do it again. It's either that or I learned that my house is just too cold to start seeds, in which case I need to wait until later on in the year. Hopefully next year my seed starting area will be a little bit better, or I'll have a greenhouse taken care of. But next, I just realized there was a big shadow. Next, let's go ahead and work on our sweet potatoes. I'm going to try and just do a really quick look at how I'm doing them this year, because last year I ordered them and this year I'm going to try and grow my own. So let's try it out. Okay, so what I've got is some Pro Mix. I've changed out the type of soil that I am using because the original soil that I had was more, I'm not sure if you can actually see it, but it's like lots of little wood chip pieces that are inside of it, and a lot of my plants were not getting properly watered. I had to go back and change it all out for Pro Mix. I got this stuff, it was, I cannot remember. I'll see if I can find the link and I'll post it in the description if you guys are wondering which kind I got, but I'm kind of testing it. So just because it's there does not necessarily mean I condone it one way or the other. I can tell you it feels better than the soil that I've got over here. And since I don't necessarily want to waste all of the soil, I've been taking the old pots that didn't sprout up. Like this is one of my, kitty, get out of that, kitty, kitty. Yeah, I wasn't talking to you, ma'am. You're not the one who's in stuff. I'm talking to you, sir. What? Libra, Haruki. They're constantly trying to get into my seed starting stuff. Instead of having to start completely over, I'm mixing it with the Pro Mix to try and loosen it up, but there's a lot of plants that I started that just, they didn't do anything. And I think most of it had to do with me, not necessarily the soil, a little bit to do with the soil, but mostly me having possibly buried them too deeply. But I am changing out how I'm doing this and redoing a whole bunch of the seeds to see whether or not I can get them to sprout. So that is what I was actually doing. Next up is my sweet potatoes, which I've never tried to grow my own sweet potatoes. I only started sweet potatoes last year as my first time growing them. This year I'm going to try and take some of my leftover sweet potatoes and make my own sweet potato starts inside these half and half cartons. I just cut the bottom off and I left the little spout right here in case I accidentally pour too much water in there. I've got a way of pouring the water out without having to, you know, cut holes all on the bottom, because these are actually going to be sitting on my shelf instead of on a tray. I don't have another tray I can put them on. So let me go find my sweet potatoes that I'm going to use. Here are all of my small sweet potatoes that are left over. I've got a couple of big ones that are still good, but these guys should give me at least a few starts each. I mean, there's some pretty small ones in here. This is like the biggest one I've got. I'm not even sure if it's going to fit in there, but these are either Georgia Jets or Beauregard. I'm not sure which because they were all mixed into one bed. and I'm going to try my own starts. Next year for my sweet potatoes, I want to try a non-vining kind because I found out there are some that don't vine out. But this is what I've got this year, and I am way over my budget on my garden this year, so we're going to go with what I've got. Okay, first things first, I need to mix the Pro Mix in with the other soil so I can loosen it up. Now, something I have found out about sweet potatoes is sweet potatoes don't care for a ton of nutrition. I don't know if that extends to whenever you're trying to get starts going, because you could technically take one of these potatoes right here, put like toothpicks or something inside of them and just set them down in a glass and they will cause sprouts to come up. But the only thing is you've got to pop those off and then stick those inside water to start getting roots. This way is supposed to allow us to set it down in the soil, and when the sprouts come off, they will get a little bit of roots, and you can just pop that off with the roots, and then you won't have to worry about the root not necessarily coming up. It should already start sprouting the root too. But then they say also go ahead and put it in water. So I'm not really sure why we're doing it this way, just I figured I would try it this way. This soil is not moist. Whenever I do like this, it just falls back apart, so we're going to add a little bit of moisture. Obviously, potatoes don't need a ton of moisture because it could just rot the potato. So I'm just going to go until it's just barely moist enough and then keep an eye on them. And what I'll probably do is I'll take 1 or 2 of the potatoes, because I've got 4 of these crates. I'll probably take a couple of potatoes and do the water method to see which way I like more. But like I said, next year, whenever I'm not spending as much on my garden, because this year was irrigation year and expanding the orchard year. Those are the 2 things that I worked on for this year. If you don't have a plan on how to expand your garden or work on your garden, I would definitely recommend having one. My first year was all about getting the beds in place and getting the infrastructure in. This year was all about getting the, I thought I felt something weird in here. It was all about getting the irrigation set. Just because this stuff is Pro Mix does not mean I'm not occasionally finding weirdness. It probably would benefit from sifting. I just don't think that I need to worry about it for these. For seeds, I definitely probably would. I would definitely recommend having like a 5-year plan on stages you want for your garden. Like this year, I'm going to add in 3 new beds. Next year, I'm going to add in irrigation. The next year after that, I'll add in a couple of bushes. The next year after that, I'll add in a couple of trees, that kind of thing. And then partition some of it off. Don't try and do all of it in the same year. I find myself guilty of this more often than not, trying to find all of the things. But what I've made a deal with myself is I look for sales. And if it's within my budget, I might go ahead and get stuff that's outside of it. But I have to be able to say, this is definitely something I wanted in my garden before. It's not something I'm getting just because I see it. Kitty, kitty, he's playing in a box. It's definitely not something that I'm just getting because I see it, which I'm guilty of doing as well, because I did get some flowers from the store that I wasn't intending to put into my garden, but at the same time, I did intend for my garden to have flowers, and none of my flowers really sprouted. Hey! And Roki, you could see its tail sticking out of the box. Anyway, so while I did wind up going to the store and getting a couple of things I didn't intend to get, there were things I was trying to sprout that I also did not get. And since I found a couple of mixes of plants that I had not seen, had not tried, or anything else like that, I figured I'd go ahead and give them a shot to see if they worked okay. And those are going to go into the garden. Plus, I found a couple of bushes that I intended to get later, but I was not expecting to find them around here. I thought I was going to have to order them, so they were on my list for later on. But I happened to find them at my local store, and they were relatively small, relatively inexpensive, and they had the 2 different types that I wanted. And it was gooseberries, and they had 2 different breeds because, as far as I know, they cross-pollinate. So I needed 2 different types. So since they had both of them, I just went ahead and grabbed those while I was getting the other stuff. But like I said, I would definitely recommend if you're trying too hard to get your garden started to not do a ton of additions that you're not expecting. This is what I've been feeling the whole time. I could not find it. Okay, are we good? Yeah, we're good. All right. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, which is just a half and half container, and it's got like the wax on it, so it won't, if you put it in like a regular box or something like that, it's going to leak. And if you had a plastic box, which I don't have any extra plastic boxes floating around, otherwise I would use it. But this is good because it's disposable, and there is a way of draining stuff in case I overwater and I realize I've done it, I can drain it out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick some soil in the bottom, and then I'm going to find some pieces that I think fit, like this one right here. This is a bit weird, but I'm going to stick that one in there. Let me see, can I find another piece that'll fit? Here, let's stick that one in there. So I've just got them sitting on there, and I'm just going to add a little bit of extra soil to the top. Not enough to fully cover it, just to have them where I can just barely see them. I'm going to tap it down a little bit, just like that. And like I said, if I don't use all of them, I'll take some of the bigger pieces and add in, put them in the water method, because I've only got so many of these. This is actually messed up. I don't know if I should try this one. You know, I have limited space. Why don't I not try that one? I've got too many other pieces that I can use. This one has actually got some little sprouts coming off of it. Let's use that. Definitely use that one. That one does not look all that great. There, let me put these in there. Sprinkle some over the top. Not enough to fully cover it, but enough to where if it sprouts something up, that sprout will be enough in the soil that it'll start getting roots. So there's my next one. I do apologize if the lighting in here isn't so great. The lighting in this room is not really all that awesome. It's just like one big overhead light. And when I turn it on, it absolutely, the whole room is kind of yellowish, so it's really not any better than the light coming in through the window. Now, supposedly, each one of these is only... Wow, that's a big old piece of bark. Each one of these is only going to produce so many sprouts. I've got like a table underneath where my plants are, and I keep all of this stuff stored underneath there, so whenever I move it, the cats immediately think it's time for them to move into it and play with things. It's been a struggle. I think that one I'll save and do that one with the water. Hang on. This one right here is a pretty decent size, and it would probably benefit from me trying the water method with this one. So this one is oddly shaped. This one is oddly shaped. I'm gonna put that one in the soil and not make another remark about that one at all. I hadn't turned it the other way. I didn't realize what I was getting into there. Okay, so all of those guys are done, and I still have quite a few left over. If I can find, I don't know, I've got probably one more. Like I said, I have no idea how this is going to go. If I got room in any of these, this one probably has a little bit more room. Okay, so all of those are done. Now I've got a couple of tomatoes that I need to up pot, and what I'll probably do is, I've got a whole bunch of these that of course my flowers didn't sprout in, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to combine these, the soil, in with my Pro Mix. Now Pro Mix is just like, it feels like coconut coir and perlite, maybe a few other things that are inside of it, but I don't think it has inherently a ton of nutrition by itself. So I have been feeding my plants. But I've got a couple of tomatoes that are kind of taking over, so I need to get those up potted. I think the only issue I'm going to have is my hands are already messy, and I'm going to have to make new labels for them, because if I don't, I will forget what it is. Okay. For instance, these are all of my pink tomatoes. They're an indeterminate version that I made last year, and it turned out great. It was one of my best producers. This is the first one that sprouted out of this whole group that I did during my first run. It's the only one that sprouted. These guys right here are from the second run, and I went ahead and split them out to make sure they had enough room, but this one is starting to overshadow them. So I actually need to up pot it to a bigger spot. So I'm just popping it out the bottom. And this is an indeterminate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pinch off these bottom leaves. I'm going to take my bigger pot, put a little bit in the bottom, not much, and then I'm just going to bury it. Making sure that I get them all around the side. And mind you, I didn't up pot these that long ago, but it occurred to me that I was probably going to wind up with issues with the smaller ones later on. This guy is going to wind up running out of nutrition. Whenever I think about it, I've got, let's see, today is the, what, 10th? 11th? Somewhere around the 10th or 11th, I'm not really sure. It is Tuesday, so Tuesday around the 10th or 11th. And we will not be able to plant these guys outside until our last frost date is the end of March. But typically we have to wait a little bit longer than that because there'll always be a surprise freeze afterwards. I usually don't trust putting things outside until after Easter, but this year Easter is very late. So I'm thinking 2 weeks after April 1st or something like that, somewhere in there. Mid-April at the latest is when all this stuff is going to go outside. So it's going to be a month. These guys are going to have to sit in here longer, and this guy is already very full. So if I leave him inside the tiny one, he's going to overshadow him and he's going to start suffering. And the last thing I want is this tomato suffering before I stick them outside. Let me find something to do a label for it and grab something else because I've got room enough for other places for big ones, and I need to get them up potted now while I've got the mess here, because right now I'm technically in the middle of my living room playing with dirt. And I'd prefer to have to clean it all up at the exact same time. Do I by chance have another pink tomato one? Some of these I went ahead and made extras of, thinking that I would eventually split them, and then they didn't produce anything, so beets, kohlrabi, romanesco, char. And I always put an eye on here just to remind me so I don't have to go back and look on whether or not it's an indeterminate or a determinate. Make sure my soil goes all the way to the bottom down here. And it does. So this one is ready, but I think I could probably up pot something else into it, thereby leaving these to do what they need to do. The only thing that I can say I haven't had as much problem trying to propagate is the Romas. They have come up. That's a determinate type. And some of these need to be moved as well. They will all go out at the same time. At least that's my goal. I hope one weekend I can go outside and just put everything in the ground and nothing crazy happens, and I wind up with things in several different pots and not labeled, which is kind of what's happening right this second. I don't like it. And I don't mind burying my tomatoes a little on the deeper side. Now, remember, if it's a determinate, it's not going to get as big, obviously, as an indeterminate size. It's going to get to a predetermined size, and it's done. And Romas, oh, don't pull on that root. Romas are that determinate type. This one's getting abused by me. That's what it is. These poor things have already been moved so many times, it's ridiculous. Thankfully, tomatoes don't mind their roots being messed with. These are also Romas. I've got a ton of tomatoes that are just floating around inside random containers that are Romas. So that's all of them up potted. I don't know if you guys can fully see what all it is I'm doing. I do apologize for the bad lighting. It would be nice to be outside right now. It is actually kind of nice outside, but the stuff that I'm working on is sadly in here, so just gonna have to do what we can with what we got. But yeah, here they are up potted, and this should give them a little bit more soil to work with and give the others a little bit more growing room. Now, I'm wondering if there's anything I should be doing about these. This one has an extra one in here, an extra two right there. There we go. You don't have any extras, do you? No. As a matter of fact, you have one here that didn't actually grow anything. Let me see if I can condense these down into one. I watered these guys earlier and they're sitting in water, which is not good. These guys right here can probably fit into another pot. I need extra room up there to start more stuff. So if I can get them combined, it also means that more of them are actually sitting underneath my lights, because I don't know if you guys noticed with my lighting situation, it's not the best. So we've got Romas here. I need to put a label on these because I borrowed this label, and I need to check to find out if I can find a place for those. Okay, this is odd. All right, I've got 3 of these are the steak hybrids, and I've got 3 that are doing very well and 1 that is looking downright pitiful. And that was all that was in there. I think I take this one out. It's going to sound weird. I'm going to take this one out and put it in with these and label it separately, because these are going to start overshadowing this one, and I think this one's going to wind up struggling to survive, and I only have 3 that lived. This is very delicate business. Playing with my tomatoes. My poor tomatoes. I'm doing so many experiments on them this year. Okay. Alright, I'm also going to have to label this one proper, but seeing as how this one is in with ones that are better sized for it, it should do a little bit better, at least for right now. These right here, we're definitely going to wind up snuffing it out. These guys actually need to be up potted though. They are big enough. Let me take this. I'm going to wind up having flowers turning up besides all of my tomatoes because I have taken all of the soil out and reused these pots. It's sad when you invest money inside of like some soil and you get it open and you start working with it and realize it's just really, really bad soil. I am being very, very impressed with the perlite stuff. Okay, in order to up pot, that I've actually been up potting this whole time, but in order to do that, what I typically do is I'll take them and fill them like 1/4 full or something, because I plan on sinking them in there, but at the same time I don't want the hole to just let everything fall out the bottom. Like my new tomatoes, even though I'm going to sink them in a little bit, I don't want their roots to actually come out the bottom, so I put a layer of soil underneath. And then I'm going to go ahead and move these guys into a bigger pot. See, that's a nice root ball, but if I leave them in there for another month, they're going to start suffering because they won't get enough. Let's go ahead and put them in there, give them some extra soil. It's not a whole lot extra. It's just a little bit extra, and hopefully they'll be happy. Just a little bit of extra room also, because with them underneath the light, I need to separate them a little bit so that they can each get a proper amount of light. And I didn't care really how much soil I lumped up around the sides of it, because the tomatoes have the ability to grow small roots along the outsides. I hope that's not flashing on my screen. I have the TV going. Anyway, because the sides of the tomato plant can actually get some little roots on them occasionally, and I'm gonna keep some soil in here because I've got 1 tomato here that is eventually going to get big enough for me to put that in there. Not dill. It's this side. Okay, now then. Those are Romas. This is an empty thing that I can pot something else into if I need to. I probably need to do something about the yarrow. Would be a good thing to do. Go ahead and get it separated out. Maybe. Let me go ahead and make some labels for this. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, I think that's it. I just needed to get a couple of things up potted, and I'll basically be doing this up until the day that they all need to go outside. So whenever something looks like it's running out of room, whenever it starts looking a little bit piddly, if it looks like it's overshadowing its neighbors, I go ahead and up pot them, and hopefully in the process make it so that my roots don't get bound up in here, and also recycling out things that just did not sprout. I'm gonna have to work on that for next year's garden, because I am trying really hard to get a whole lot more sprouted this year, but I just didn't do a whole lot of preparation, especially when it came to all of my flowers. I didn't do proper preparation. I just stuck them in the soil without even thinking about needing to put them in the freezer for a little while or the refrigerator for a little while. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is it. I have got a huge mess to clean up. Thank you guys so much for being with me for this up potting and sweet potato thing that I'm doing. I'm still not sure. If you guys have actually sprouted out your potatoes like that, let me know how it turned out, which method you liked using, whether it was like in the soil or in a cup with water. I would dearly like to know, because I've seen people use both methods and I'm curious about which one seemed to be more productive. That is it. I will see you guys next time. You have a wonderful day and night, and you stay shiny. Bye.